I used to believe that the greatest wedding gift for a daughter was a home, a perfect beginning to her married life. That's why my husband, James, and I spared no expense or effort to give Sophia a dream house. We expected the wedding to be a joyful occasion, the start of a happy, fulfilling journey, where love would be nurtured and Sophia would be cherished, just as every mother hopes for her daughter. But everything fell apart faster than I imagined. Even before the wedding, Robert's family, the seemingly polite fiancé, moved in as if the house belonged to them, without asking for permission, without hesitation. His parents, his brother, and even his sister-in-law all wheeled in their suitcases like they were coming home. Their first action wasn't gratitude, it was a demand. We'll take the master bedroom, and Sophia will handle the cleaning and cooking. She's a girl, that's normal. I was stunned, not because of their shamelessness, but because my daughter was being treated like a servant in the very home James and I had poured our hearts into for her. James stood beside me, fists clenched, speechless. And me, though boiling inside, tried to remain calm. I thought, this is just a misunderstanding. They won't take it any further. But that was the last time I lied to myself. What they didn't expect was that the girl they underestimated was not nearly as weak as they thought. Robert, the man Sophia fell for, didn't seem like a bad person at first. He was gentle, polite, and always attentive to Sophia's feelings. As her parents, we were cautious, but we couldn't completely oppose the relationship. After all, we wanted to believe that our daughter had chosen the right person. But the more we learned, the clearer the disparities became. Robert came from a poor family. His parents lived in a remote rural area working as farmers, and his brother and sister-in-law barely got by with odd jobs in the city. No house, no car, and worst of all, no contribution to the wedding. Not even an engagement ring. Sophia had to buy her own ring and lied that it was from him just so we wouldn't worry. When I found out, my heart broke, but I tried to comfort myself. She truly loves him. And so, wanting to ensure she wouldn't live in lack, we decided to give her a house. Not a tiny apartment, but a private home in the Boston suburbs, designed and renovated from top to bottom by James himself. Every detail, every brick was infused with love and hope. The day the house was completed, James practically dragged me to see it because he was so excited. But before I could step inside, I heard a shrill voice coming from within. This neighborhood feels like a prison. Every house has its doors shut tight. Robert, go tell them to open their doors and be more friendly. And what's with that iron gate? Locked up like we're being detained. When our relatives visit, are they supposed to stand outside like beggars? I didn't need to look. I knew immediately it was Robert's mother. I froze, a simmering anger spreading in my chest. Robert hadn't brought anything into this marriage. No money, no wedding gift, not even a word of thanks. Yet his mother was already yelling like the house belonged to them. I turned to Sophia, who was still trying to smile, still trying to be polite. Ma'am, there's a wonderful community center nearby. The people there are friendly, and they host lots of activities like chess and cultural performances. But Mrs. Taylor just frowned. Chess? Oh, please, you think we've never played chess before. Then, as if we didn't even exist, they started wandering around the house, inspecting every item, every corner, like they were appraising their own property. I began to feel uneasy. Sophia was still trying to hold on to the last bit of courtesy. But I knew that if we didn't act soon, my daughter would fall into a trap called in-laws. Robert never had any intention of building a home together. Even the engagement ring, the most sacred symbol, Sophia had to buy herself, quietly taking her best friend to choose it, hiding it from us. When we found out, there wasn't even an apology. Instead, Robert's family claimed she was wasting money. A ring is just for show. Why waste money on that nonsense, they said, as if Sophia was being extravagant, as if a heartfelt gift was laughable. But every boundary was truly broken when they stepped into the new house. The master bedroom, painstakingly designed by James for Sophia, was shamelessly taken by Mrs. Taylor, who sprawled across the new bed, shoes still on, dirtying the white sheets. Mr. Taylor casually lit a cigarette in the room, then stubbed it out on the glossy wooden nightstand like it was an ashtray in a dive bar. The house, freshly completed and still smelling of new paint, was now reeking of cigarette smoke and soiled with footprints. James clenched his fists, his face red with rage. Sophia looked to Robert, hoping he would speak up to his parents. But he just lowered his head in silence, like a scolded child. Then came the breaking point. Mr. Taylor walked into the smaller bedroom, nodding with satisfaction. "This room is decent. Let's reserve it for Liam, our grandson. Robert, call your brother. Tell him to move in. David and Susan will live here." Then, turning to Robert, he added brazenly, "This house will be under David's name. It'll be convenient when Liam starts school. As for you two, once you have kids, you can come back and stay later." I was in shock. Each word felt like a knife. Not because they were unreasonable, but because they didn't see Sophia as part of the family. They only saw the house as a piece of property to be divided. But what they didn't expect was that Sophia had begun to see it all clearer than ever before. The air in the house turned cold in an instant. Mr. Taylor's words were like a bucket of cold water thrown straight at us. The house will be under David's name. Liam needs a stable place to study. And you two just have a baby and move back in later. 1 second later, Sophia stood up straight. For the first time since they stepped into the house, her eyes were no longer soft. They were full of determination. "This house is a wedding gift for my parents. It's not a rental. It's not public property. No one has the right to decide anything except me." Her voice was firm, resolute, making the whole room hold its breath. Mr. Taylor raised an eyebrow, his cigarette trembling slightly in his hand. "What did you just say? You said this house is yours." He scoffed, gray smoke blowing into the air. "This is my son's house. You're about to marry him, which means it belongs to our family. Who do you think you are, talking like that?" His gaze was full of contempt, as if Sophia was just a foolish, arrogant girl. Mrs. Taylor immediately jumped in, her voice sharp. "We're not trying to take anything. But it's ridiculous for two newlyweds to live in a mansion like this. And you can't even give our grandson a room? Besides, you two don't even have a child yet. Keeping the house so empty is just wasteful." Then, as if to strike Sophia down again, she tilted her head, smirking. "We're not being greedy. We're just here to help, to support you two. A daughter-in-law should know how to take care of her in-laws, not just sit around enjoying luxury, waiting to be served. Are you planning to be lazy from day one in this house?" Sophia stood still, hands slightly trembling, but her eyes didn't waver. She was no longer the timid girl afraid of upsetting others. She had realized that her patience wasn't seen as kindness, but as weakness they could trample on. Before I could step in to protect her, Sophia responded, her voice cold and chilling. "If you want a house in the city, if you want to be treated like royalty, buy one with your own money. Don't expect my parents to provide for you forever." The room went dead silent. Mrs. Taylor froze, unable to believe her ears. Mr. Taylor's eyes bulged. "What? Robert, did you hear what she just said? She just called your parents freeloaders." Robert finally looked up, pale-faced, his voice urgent. "Sophia, you can't say that. You need to apologize to my parents." Sophia turned to him, her gaze like ice. "If that's how you feel, then take your whole family and leave. This is my house, not yours." That sentence was the first cut, severing the last fragile thread between Sophia and Robert's family. But it was also the first step for my daughter to escape the pit that had been waiting beneath her feet. James had been silent the entire time, but I could see every muscle in his face tightening with fury. He was a calm man, but when insult crossed a line, that calm turned into a violent storm. Mr. Taylor stepped forward, pointing directly at Sophia. "Who taught you to speak like that? What kind of disrespectful daughter is this? Or have you spoiled her so much that she thinks she's a princess now?" Then he turned to James and me, his voice dripping with scorn. "I'll be honest, raising a child like that is a failure. Doesn't know how to respect elders, doesn't know how to obey her husband. How is she going to hold a family together in the future?" Those words didn't just insult Sophia. They were a slap to our faces as parents. And that was it. James couldn't take it anymore. He stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Are you done? Because now I'll tell you something. My daughter is not a tool for your family to exploit. This house, from the floor tiles to the chandelier, was paid for by me. And your family? Not a cent, not a single wedding gift, not even a thank you. So who are you to tell my daughter she owes you respect?" Mr. Taylor's mouth dropped open, stunned. James then turned to Robert, his voice laced with contempt. "And you, other than obediently listening to your parents, what have you done for my daughter? Not even a ring. And you dare make demands." Robert stammered, "I just want things to be peaceful." James scoffed, "Peaceful? By letting your family overpower my daughter? Sorry, but this house is not a place for your entire clan to plant their flag." Mr. Taylor's face turned crimson. Mrs. Taylor shrieked, "That girl is selfish and rude. We're the elders. She's supposed to show respect. Let's be real. Robert marrying her is a downgrade. She's already past her prime, picky as hell. If it weren't for this house, who would even want her?" Those final words were the cruelest blow. I saw Sophia's shoulders tremble slightly, her eyes beginning to redden. Robert didn't defend her, didn't react, just bowed his head, lifeless. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped forward, my voice icy. "Do you really think my daughter is some bargain bin item that needs to be packaged with incentives to be accepted? If not for this house, would any of you have even looked her way?" Robert remained silent. Sophia turned away, trying to hold back her tears. And then I realized it was time. Time for us to let go, to stop trying for a fake marriage. And Sophia would be the first to say it out loud. It wasn't a scream, nor a meltdown. Just a clear, steady voice that rang out through the room thick with tension. "I'm not marrying Robert." James and I simultaneously turned to Sophia. She stood there, back straight, eyes resolute. "I'm not speaking out of anger. I've thought this through. Between me and him, between our families, there's too much difference. It can't be reconciled. And today, everything has become crystal clear." The room went so quiet, you could hear the ticking of a clock. Robert opened his mouth, but no words came. Mrs. Taylor broke the silence with a bitter laugh. "Oh, please. Who do you think you are to decide to leave my son? Even if you cancel the wedding, he'd never come back to someone like you." Sophia said nothing. She turned to Robert, her voice icy. "Leave. Take your parents and get out of my house. It's over." Robert lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "Don't. You're being unreasonable. You always do this, getting angry, blowing things out of proportion. But this time, you need to apologize to my parents." Sophia yanked her hand away like she'd been burned. "Don't you get it? This isn't a tantrum. It's clarity." Mr. Taylor snorted coldly. "You ungrateful brat. Robert, look at her. This is the girl you want to marry? If she's already acting out like this before the wedding, imagine how she'll walk all over you after." Then, losing control, he shouted, "Women like her are useless. If she's so great, why did she need to use a house to lure a man in the first place?" I saw James's eyes flare red. His hand clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Then, unable to restrain himself any longer, he stepped forward and slapped Robert across the face. A clean, decisive strike. Robert staggered backward. "That's for Sophia," James growled. "For every time you let them insult her and said nothing." The room exploded into chaos. But in the midst of it all, Sophia stood tall, not crying, not trembling. Only her eyes glowed with unshakable resolve. She had chosen her own path, and neither blind love nor cowardice would pull her back again. After everything that had happened, I thought Robert's family would finally stay quiet and disappear. But they didn't. Less than a week later, Sophia received an email with a shameless subject line. Sophia, expenses to settle after the breakup. At first, I thought it was a cruel joke. But when Sophia opened it, her face hardened. Robert had sent her an attached Excel spreadsheet, itemizing every single cent he had spent on her during their one-year relationship. March 12th, Starbucks coffee, $11.80. Valentine's Day, flowers, $20. Weekend Uber, $14. Birthday gift, $200 gift card. At the bottom, in bold italics, $2,897.36. I'm being generous. Just transfer this exact amount, and we'll call it even. I had never felt my blood boil that fast. The same man who couldn't even afford an engagement ring, who made Sophia pay for everything from dinner to movie tickets, was now acting like a debt collector. Robert, did he really think we would just let this go? Throughout their entire relationship, Sophia had paid for nearly everything. The romantic dinners were on her credit card. Every short trip, they were her responsibility. Even when Robert's father was hospitalized, we personally brought $1,500 and gifts to visit. And now my daughter was being humiliated with a post-breakup invoice? James's face turned purple with rage. I, on the other hand, simply smirked. Fine. If he wants to play that game, we'll play it all the way. That day, I wrote a check for $3,000 and mailed it directly to Robert's house, along with a note. My family owes him nothing. This is the last payment. Never show your face again. But deep down, I knew someone like Robert, with his bruised ego and cheap pride, wouldn't stop that easily. And sure enough, this was just the beginning. That morning, something felt off at Sophia's office. As she stepped out of the elevator, a crowd of employees was gathered near the reception area, whispering. Some pointed fingers, others glanced at their phones, and a few looked awkward when they made eye contact with Sophia. And then, as she walked past the group, Sophia saw what left her frozen in place. Robert and his parents were standing in the lobby, as if staging a protest. Robert kept his head down, but Mr. and Mrs. Taylor showed no shame. Mrs. Taylor shouted, "There she is. This girl right here. Everyone listen up. She used my son's money for a whole year and now just walks away. Is that fair?" All eyes turned toward Sophia. She stood still for a moment, cheeks burning with embarrassment. But Mrs. Taylor wasn't finished. "We have proof. Here's the breakdown. Coffee, flowers, movie tickets. We have the receipts." She then held up a large printed board, a cost breakdown of their dating expenses, like she was presenting at a shareholder meeting. The crowd began to murmur, "What's going on? Are you kidding?" Counting every coffee. "It's just a couple $1,000, and they're acting like it's a fortune." Sophia clenched her fists. I stepped forward, shielding her from the stares. "That's enough," I said loudly. Mrs. Taylor turned to me, still unwilling to back down. "We just want justice. She used my son's money and now denies responsibility. Just because her family has money, you think you're above everyone else." I sighed. "Fine. If you want to make this big, let's make it clear." Before the entire office, I pulled out a check. "Here's $3,000, even more than what your family asked for. Take it. Let's end this now." I gently tossed the check toward Robert. It landed at his feet. Mrs. Taylor rushed to pick it up, her face full of smug satisfaction. But I wasn't done. Now it's my turn to ask, how much has my family given? My daughter bought Robert a brand new phone worth over $1,200. When Mr. Taylor was sick, we gave gifts worth $1,500. And what about all the dinners, all the presents, all the times Sophia paid on her own? Did you add those up? The crowd gasped. Someone whispered, "Sounds like Sophia was the one paying all along." I stared directly at Robert, my voice firm. "You want to talk money? Then let's talk properly." Robert stammered. I just wrote it down to remember. It wasn't meant to be petty. But no one believed him anymore. One of Sophia's colleagues laughed out loud. "Who keeps a spreadsheet of dating expenses? This is absurd." I nodded and turned to my daughter. That's enough. Let's go. Sophia nodded and walked with me, leaving behind the whispers, the pitying looks, directed now at Robert's family. But we knew this wasn't over yet. There were still things to settle. And this time, it would be at a place Robert couldn't escape. His workplace. The next day, Sophia and I went to the company where Robert worked. No drama. No yelling. We brought with us a printed copy of the email Robert had sent demanding repayment, the detailed spreadsheet, and documents proving that Sophia had paid far more throughout their relationship. The receptionist led us to the guest lounge. After a short wait, Robert's direct manager walked in, polite but visibly cautious. Hello. I'm Logan, head of human resources. Could you tell me what this is about? I nodded and handed him the printed email. My daughter received this from your employee, and here is the attached file. Logan glanced through the documents. His expression darkened within seconds. He actually sent this? I nodded. Sophia sat silently beside me, no longer angry, just exhausted. Logan furrowed his brow. I sincerely apologize. We don't condone this kind of behavior. Just then, an assistant came over and whispered something in his ear. Logan paused and turned to me. Sorry, but are you Dawson? Related to Granite and Company? I nodded. Yes. I'm the deputy director there. Logan's demeanor shifted immediately. His voice turned serious. We're truly sorry. Our company does not support unethical behavior from our employees. What Robert did, demanding money from an ex-girlfriend, creating a public disturbance at someone else's workplace, is unacceptable. He turned to Sophia. I assure you, this will be handled seriously. A report will be sent to senior HR management. Robert was called into the office shortly after. When he walked in, his eyes darted away, face pale as a sheet. No longer the man who once spoke harsh words to Sophia. No longer the person who dared issue demands and ultimatums. Now just a weak, humiliated employee, facing the consequences of his own actions. I held Sophia's hand and said gently, "Let's go." Sophia nodded. This time, she walked out of Robert's company, not in shame, but with dignity. And Robert? He lost the most valuable things, his reputation and his pride. I thought it was all over. Robert and his family had been exposed, their dignity shattered, and they should have known to retreat quietly. But then, he came back. Not with loud theatrics like storming into workplaces, but with silent, creeping tactics that drained Sophia more than anything before. Messages from unknown numbers started appearing. I miss you. I was wrong. I've lost everything. You're the only light I have left. At first, Sophia didn't respond. She didn't react, just handed me her phone, face cold. It's him again. Then came the emails. Emotional, full of self-blame. Robert poured out his heart about a love that was hurt, about loneliness that no one could understand. He admitted his mistakes, said he'd been misled by his parents, that Sophia was too wonderful and he never deserved her. But midway through those syrupy lines, the tone shifted. I have nothing left. You are everything to me. If you really leave me, I don't know what I'll do. I stopped reading. My vision dimmed. This wasn't an apology. This was a threat. What people call emotional blackmail, a tactic to trap someone in guilt if they don't come back. Sophia sighed, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. She whispered, I know walking away was right, but why does it still feel so exhausting? I squeezed her hand. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're healing. And that takes time. But Robert didn't stop. One night, Sophia came home, set her phone down, and said softly, Mom, this time it's different. I looked at her phone. It was an anonymous social media post. A blurry photo, some poorly edited video clips, but all deliberately made to paint a picture. Sophia as a gold digger, rich girl exploiting a poor boyfriend, dumped him because she found someone new. The caption hit like ice water. Even people like this once received real love. Heartless, soulless. We didn't need an investigation. I knew the source immediately. Only Robert had the photos, the clips, and enough bitterness to orchestrate such a filthy smear. Sophia bit her lip. He's using a fake account. Can't verify him. But the content, it's clearly from him. I didn't say a word. I just picked up my phone and called an old friend, now a lawyer at a top firm. I need to send a legal takedown notice and trace the IP for possible defamation charges. Within 24 hours, the official notice was sent. At the same time, we filed a civil harassment report. Robert had not only hurt my daughter emotionally, now he was trying to destroy her reputation, her dignity, her private life. But Sophia didn't break. She didn't hide. She didn't weaken. She just clenched her hand and said, "I won't let him drag me back into that hole again." I knew then. Her heart wasn't fully healed yet. But this time, it had learned how to protect itself. I thought after facing legal threats, Robert would finally stop. But no. A week later, Sophia received a package. Inside was a handwritten letter, Robert's handwriting, the same familiar tone. It began with nostalgia. He wrote about their first date, about how she laughed while choosing food, about the time she sat for hours caring for his hospitalized father. But by the end, every word turned ice cold. If you really abandon me again, I don't know what will happen. I have no reason left to keep living. Sophia didn't cry, but her hand trembled as she held the letter, the ink smudging slightly at the corner of the page. She looked at me. "Mom, what should I do?" I didn't hesitate. "We're going to court." That afternoon, we went to the district courthouse to file for a restraining order. This was no longer a precaution. This was a concrete legal step to put an end to his pattern of threats. We had everything we needed: emails, texts, defamatory posts, and now the letter. Sophia sat silently in the waiting area, still clutching the letter like a painful piece of evidence. "I know this is the right thing," she whispered, eyes distant, "but why do I feel so drained?" I placed a hand on her shoulder, my voice soft. "Not because you're weak. Because you've been strong for too long." She looked up at me, and for the first time, there was no fear in her eyes. "I won't let him hurt me again." I nodded, smiling. "That's my girl." We left the courthouse with a temporary restraining order in hand, legally prohibiting Robert from contacting or approaching Sophia in any form. At the same time, our lawyers submitted all the evidence to Granite and Company's internal legal department, Sophia's workplace, to ensure her professional safety moving forward. This legal battle might not be over, but this time we weren't waiting for Robert to apologize. We weren't waiting for him to change. We were taking action, decisive and firm. And Sophia, she was no longer the girl who once endured in silence. She was truly stepping out of the darkness that Robert had once used to chain her soul. The temporary restraining order was granted just a few weeks after filing. Although Robert was now legally forbidden from contacting or approaching Sophia, I knew the wounds my daughter carried wouldn't just vanish overnight. But what surprised me most was this: Sophia didn't hide. She didn't let exhaustion swallow her in gloom. Instead, she threw herself into work as a way to heal. No longer hesitant or cautious, Sophia began taking on major projects, assignments she had once declined out of fear of pressure. She learned to manage her time, lead her teams, and make sharp, confident decisions. She no longer let emotions control her like before. No more spacing out over a text or haunted by old memories. Now she was focused, grounded, and alert. "I can't let emotions keep holding me back," Sophia said, her eyes clear. "I spent too much time clinging to someone who wasn't worth it. Now, I have to hold on to myself." Then one day, when Granite and Company was selecting a representative to attend a regional business conference, they chose Sophia. She stepped onto the stage and presented her project in front of hundreds of business leaders, investors, and advisors from neighboring states. Her voice was clear, her content sharp, her presence steady. I sat among the audience, a quiet pride swelling in my heart. After the presentation, many company representatives came over to speak with her, exchange business cards, and express interest in future collaborations. It wasn't a loud turning point, but it was enough to open a new door for her career. That day, Sophia didn't just walk out of her pain. She stepped into a brand new chapter, where she was in control, no longer steered by anyone else. And when the spotlight dimmed, I knew. The Sophia standing here today was a completely different woman from the one who once cried over an old love. She wasn't just healing. She was growing, stronger, more beautiful, and more radiant than ever. After a series of relentless upheavals, Sophia's life gradually returned to balance. She regained her footing, no longer tethered by the past. Instead, she focused on her work, seriously, thoughtfully, and with clear strategy. And then, at the regional business conference attended by Granite & Company, she was chosen to deliver a keynote presentation before a room full of business leaders. That talk didn't just leave a strong impression. It quietly marked a turning point, both in her career and in her personal life. After the presentation, Sophia was invited to a networking luncheon with senior guests. The atmosphere wasn't loud or flashy. It was warm and refined, just like the nature of those who were truly accomplished, but didn't need to show it off. At that small table, Sophia was introduced to a man with calm eyes and a deep, steady voice. Noah, a co-founder of East Bay Capital. Ethan had studied at MIT and came from a well-known family in San Francisco's financial world. But what caught Sophia's attention wasn't his background or education. It was how he listened, truly listened. When she spoke about business perspectives, sustainable growth strategies, and the value of people within an organization. Their conversation wasn't long. No phone numbers exchanged, no date suggestions. Just two people talking as equals, understanding each other without effort. Sophia left the table feeling light. No pressure, no expectations. But a few days later, she received a handwritten letter at her office. Neat, clean handwriting. It was from Ethan. No invitation to meet. No pushy advances. Just a sincere thank you for her presentation. In the letter, Ethan wrote that the way Sophia framed her points made him rethink how he was running his own company. Enclosed was a book on leadership and strategy, with a note, "I think you'll enjoy Chapter 7. Sophia smiled as she held the book. There was something in the way Ethan expressed himself, not rushed, not imposing, that made her feel at ease. He wasn't the type of man to chase intensely. He was the kind of man mature enough to simply stand still and still create a quiet, undeniable pull. I looked at my daughter and saw a new gentleness on her face. At least this time, he didn't send an invoice after the date. I joked softly. Sophia chuckled, then fell silent again. But in her eyes, for the first time after everything, there was a quiet sense of relief. Not because she was in love, but because she was no longer afraid. And to me, that was already a beautiful beginning. There were no grand bouquets of roses, no overwhelming texts every morning and night. Sophia and Ethan's relationship grew slowly, naturally. They didn't rush to label whatever was forming between them, nor did they try to speed things up. Instead, they met at professional events, exchanged insights on investment trends and market development strategies. Every now and then, they'd grab coffee, not to flirt, but to share perspectives. Sophia had grown used to men who needed to assert dominance, to showcase power, to prove they were the leader. But Ethan was different. He didn't want to lead Sophia. He wanted to walk beside her. Not above, not below, just as equals. One evening, when Ethan dropped Sophia off at home, his car stopped in front of her house. He turned to her, voice steady and calm. "I don't know what you think of me, but I want to be honest, I like you. Not because you're smart, not because you're accomplished, but because when I'm around you, life feels more meaningful." Sophia was silent for a few seconds. Then she gently nodded. "I don't know what the future holds, but I want to find out." No passionate declaration of love. No grand promises. Just a quiet, grown-up agreement. A few weeks later, Ethan asked if Sophia would meet his parents. James and I were a bit cautious. Memories of Robert's family still loomed in the background. But when Sophia shared what happened at the meeting, I knew this time was different. Ethan's parents didn't interrogate, didn't judge, didn't scheme. They welcomed Sophia as an adult, not a future daughter-in-law. Ethan's mother even whispered during dinner, "Ethan's never brought anyone home before. This is the first time I've seen him worry over dessert." And I understood this was a family that knew how to appreciate, not demand. A man who knew how to share, not possess. Sophia had finally met the right person at the right time. News of Sophia's new relationship quickly spread through the business circle. A photo of her and Ethan at a major event was posted online. Nothing intimate, just the two of them standing side by side, smiling. But the name Parker was enough to spark chatter. And it didn't take long for Robert to find out. That day after work, as Sophia stepped out of her office building, she saw Robert standing near the entrance, his face gaunt, eyes tense. "So you've got someone new now," he said, his voice hoarse and bitter. "You left me just to be with someone else right away." Sophia stopped. She wasn't afraid. She didn't flinch. "Robert, you no longer have the right to question me. If you keep following me, I will call the police." Robert clenched his jaw. "So this was your plan all along? You met him while you were still with me, didn't you?" Sophia's voice was ice cold. "You're delusional." Just then, a figure stepped out from the parking lot. Ethan. He walked up beside Sophia, stood next to her, calm, unwavering. "I don't know who you are," Ethan said slowly, "but if you take another step toward her, I will call the police right now." Robert froze. He hadn't expected Ethan to show up. "Oh, so this is her new man," he sneered. "You think you're better than me?" Ethan didn't respond. He simply repeated, firm and steady, "Leave. This is your last chance to walk away peacefully." Ethan's composure threw Robert off. He turned to Sophia, the woman who once stayed silent under his control, now standing tall, completely unafraid. Her eyes showed no fear, only contempt. And in that moment, Robert understood. He hadn't just lost a lover. He had forever been shut out from the world she now lived in. A world built on respect, on kindness, not power or manipulation. As Sophia and Ethan walked away, Robert remained standing there, alone, silent, and completely lost. After all the turmoil, all the pain, and all the unwanted confrontations, Sophia somehow managed to keep the calm composure she had earned over time. One early autumn evening, as golden light stretched across the lake near our home, she asked me to go for a walk, down the stone path we used to visit often when she was little. The breeze was gentle, leaves rustled. The water shimmered in the soft glow of the setting sun. Sophia walked slowly, her shoes barely making a sound, reminding me of all those times she used to skip along the edge of the rocks, tilting dangerously close to the water, making my heart jump. Back then, I always reached out to hold her sleeve every time she wobbled by the shore. Now, she walked steadily. No one needed to hold her anymore. "Do you remember how I used to pick up stones here?" Sophia suddenly asked. I smiled. "You said every stone was special and had to come home with you." She chuckled quietly. "Back then, I thought everything was worth keeping. Now I understand. Some things are better left in the heart, not in your life." Her words stopped me in my tracks. A kind of maturity that didn't need to be flaunted. We walked in silence for a while. Just footsteps and wind. Then Sophia asked softly, "Mom, what do you think people spend their lives looking for?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes looked out across the lake, where the water reflected the soft amber light of the evening sky. "It depends on the person, but I think it's peace." "Not happiness?" she asked, surprised. I shook my head. Happiness is often someone else's expectation. It's a fleeting emotion. But peace, that's something you create for yourself. It's quiet, and it lasts. She was quiet for a while, then spoke gently, like pulling a piece of herself into the open. "I used to think I needed to be loved to have worth. But now I see learning to love myself is the real goal. I nodded, smiling softly, looking at her with a quiet sense of relief. And that is enough. Sophia smiled in return. You've always known that, haven't you? I didn't answer, just slowed my pace, walking side by side with her. Because I knew my daughter no longer needed someone to guide her. But somewhere along the journey of growing up, she still needed a hand nearby. Not to hold her back, but to remind her that she's never alone. I'm Sophia, and I once believed love could conquer everything. Differences, circumstances, even pain. When I first met Robert, I was drawn to his calm demeanor. He wasn't loud, he wasn't showy. I thought that was depth. I mistook his silence for maturity, his frugality for practicality. Even when my friends hinted that he was too calculating, I dismissed it, thinking they were being harsh. I was wrong, deeply wrong. On our first date, he took me to a fast food chain. He ordered the cheapest meal and said to me, "Don't get too much. It's expensive." I laughed it off, telling myself he was just financially conscious. Then came Valentine's Day. No gift, no card. He sent me $520 on Venmo with a message. Love isn't about material things. As long as you understand, that's enough. I was touched. I thought this was a modern kind of love, minimal, sincere. But slowly I realized everything he did had a limit, a calculation. And I was always on the side that had to give. For his birthday, I bought him a new iPhone. For mine, he gave me a $200 gift card and said, "Get whatever you want." I still smiled, because I was used to giving without asking for anything in return. He didn't have a car, I drove. He didn't have a house. I said, "That's okay." When he said he couldn't afford a ring, I went out and bought one myself. I asked my best friend to help pick it, then lied to my parents and said it was from him. Not out of pride, but because I didn't want my parents to feel disappointed. I wanted to shield them, to protect both of us. But the more I protected him, the deeper I sank. The first time I visited his home, his mother looked me up and down and asked, "Do you know how to cook?" I smiled and said, "I know a bit. I'd love to learn more from you." She didn't smile, just nodded, as if handing down a judgment. Later, she criticized my clothes. Too fashionable, she said. Said I wasn't suitable as a daughter-in-law. Said career women couldn't keep husbands. And Robert? He said, "That's just how my mom is. Don't take it to heart." So I stayed silent. I let it go when I was judged, belittled. I thought things would change. Then came the house. When Robert said he couldn't afford one, I suggested my parents give us one as a wedding gift. He didn't say no. He ran to tell his parents. And then I saw their true faces. The master bedroom is for us, the parents. The small room will be for our grandson. Your brother and sister-in-law will also move in. I was stunned, and Robert whispered, "Mom's just saying that. Don't overreact." That sentence woke me up. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a financial solution, a rich girl who could provide for their entire family. Love? Respect? They didn't exist. And the worst part, when I left, Robert called me selfish, disrespectful to his future in-laws. Then spread rumors that I ran off with his money, that I was materialistic, greedy. He even sent me a spreadsheet, itemizing every coffee, every flower, every Uber ride. He demanded nearly $3,000. I transferred it, exactly $3,000. Not because I owed him, but because I wanted to close that door forever. Later, I heard he lost his job. His friends distanced themselves. His reputation was gone. But I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vindicated. Because I had already walked away from that relationship. I no longer felt angry. I didn't need revenge. I just lived better, lived fully, with purpose, for myself. That is the clearest answer. No shouting, no accusations, just living a life that he will never be able to reach. It's the quietest revenge, but the most powerful. And this time, I didn't bow my head. I didn't forgive. I didn't accommodate. I simply walked away. Alone. But with my head held high. Time passed, and everything slowly returned to where it belonged. Robert, after all he had done, not only lost Sophia, he lost his entire career. His job applications were rejected by company after company. His reputation buried under the very disgrace he created. Meanwhile, Sophia grew stronger with each passing day. She no longer lived to please others, nor did she allow anyone to define her worth. She found peace in her work, in genuine relationships, in the quiet confidence of her own independence. And Ethan, the man who had steadily walked beside her, he didn't try to rescue her from old wounds. He gave her space to heal in her own time. His family never treated her like a prize to be claimed, but as a woman worthy of love, respect, and admiration. Sophia didn't need to take revenge on Robert. She didn't need to prove anything to the past. Because true victory isn't making someone suffer. It's having the courage to let go of what once held you back and choosing to live a new life, radiant, free, and fully your own. She did it. And in the end, she was happy, not because she won someone over, but because she came back to herself. After all the storms, what Sophia gained wasn't satisfaction from winning, nor was it a sense of triumph over an ex. What she found was peace, something she once thought had to be earned through struggle, compromise, or pleasing others. But peace came when she finally said, enough. When she learned to draw boundaries. When she chose to love herself first. Everyone will walk through a few wrong relationships before they learn how to live rightly for themselves. What matters isn't what others did to us. It's whether we dared to walk away. If you've ever been hurt, if you've ever lost your way like Sophia, remember this. You are not alone. And one day, you'll also find yourself in a place where pain can no longer reach you. If this story resonates with you, click like or share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart.